Start of turn 4 now. Lilith's draw phase. Okay, another high cost character, Dagon. And Bridge to Survive. So Bridge to Survive gives Lilith invulnerability, which she will factor to her computations. She also gets another event pool icon because a resource because the player won a story. So resourcing, she can play 4 and yeah, she's gonna increase this one. Playing the highest cost character or priority character cost 4 is Ancient Guardian. This card can pay 1 to ready characters, so he's basically going to do that using the event pool at first. After Lilith's committed and exhausted, she's going to stand up the ready the characters ready to defend. Now, if we look at Sleep of Reason, she'll play it if she has a superiority of terror icons. So Lilith has 1, 2, 3, 4 terror icons, and the player has 2, 3. So she does have superiority of terror icons. So she's going to play this to the highest priority story, which is story 2. So now it's Lilith's story phase. She's going to commit with a minimum number of characters and then of minimum priority with the set number of characters to win terror and or combat. So highest priority story is story 2, and the player basically has 3 terror, 1 combat. But if Lilith puts a terror inducing character, then it comes down to the combat. So I hope you can observe that if she plays the Ancient Guardian here, she's at least going to win the combat. Because even if the player defended with everything, in theory, Lilith loses terror, but she doesn't care. She has terror icon, and then she has 2 combat to 1, so she wins it. And then she'll wonder whether she can dunk in more characters to win investigation, but there's no chance with this deck. Now she looks at story number 3. So here, uh, the player potentially has 3 terror and a combat. So Lilith has, I think, a problem here in that if she uses only the Insanity Immune characters, she can get 2 terror, but she can't win the combat. But if she throws in all 3, then she's going to lose terror 3 to 2, and then the freelance agent would go insane, and she wouldn't be able to win combat either. So it appears that Lilith is prevented from going elsewhere here. So this is the way she works. She's not going to commit without an advantage. So the reason I changed the rules in this way is that it's actually much harder for the player if Lilith kind of sits back a bit more rather than rushing in. Because if she just rushes in to win stories, say based on skill, she might, in certain situations, throw in everybody just to get 1 token. And then on the player's turn, you come back with characters with investigation, and you get more points or tokens than Lilith, and then you win the race. So there's a balancing mechanism here. So, player's perspective, are we going to try and defend this? Note that Lilith effectively ignored the alternative historian. That's because it has a real cost to it. So any card that has a real cost, she will not assume it's going to happen. In effect, she's forcing the player to kind of make use of it and pay the cost if they want to. So in this instance, we can go in and defend on combat and so on and so on by using alternative historian. So I think if we were to tie on terror, say we go in, we tie the terror phase, and we don't worry about combat. So we'll go in like that. So terror phase 2-2, arcane phase, prayer wins. Sorry, combat phase next. Alternative historian will throw away the card to skip the phase. Arcane phase, the prayer wins. And there are 2 investigation phases, one on the story and one on Wit and Green, which the player wins. 4. And then story resolution, Lilith has 3, player has 5. So didn't go so well for Lilith there, but she did. On the other hand, she didn't overcommit. So player comes off here. Lilith goes off, and then she's going to use the ability of Ancient Guardian to pay 1 and stand. So she will pass the turn to the player. We'll get Karen Marley back from Insanity. Draw phase. Draw 2. Use the Book of Iod again. Let's take Expert Testimony to hand. Resource phase. Let's play up another domain to 3. Okay, and then start bringing in some cards. So I think Expert Testimony could help us to win somewhere. I'm gonna basically try and get stories 2 and 3 together without doing a whole bunch of math. Just throw some characters in, and then we'll see how Lilith responds to that. So we're gonna keep 2 resources spare. We're gonna keep Dr. Maya Badri spare. If someone gets killed, she can come in and replace them. Well, let's use the ice shaft, and we'll immediately sacrifice it, and we shall get rid of the Ancient Guardian. Does it cost her skill? Let's see, sorry. Characters, its skill 3 are low, yeah, so she can kill that thing. And then let's play in Degenerate Ghoul as a chump. Okay, so story phase. So we're going to try and overwhelm stories 2 and 3. If we've also got the resource of Expert Testimony here and the doctor, so we're kind of hoping we can do okay here. So let's see. Alright, we'll go there. So Lilith's going to evaluate this situation. The priority is the player having more on story 2. So here, the 2 terror, 2 combat. So yeah, Lilith can come in there and dominate. So she'll go like this. 2 terror and a whole bunch of combat, because Freelance Agent gets 2 extra icons for characters with lower skill, which is Degenerate Ghoul. So 4 combat, 5 combat. So the minimum characters she could put in to get this done were all 3, because she needs to use Freelance Agent, but to do that, she can't lose the terror struggle. If she didn't put a second, like for her sister, she'll lose terror and Freelance Agent will go insane. Note that her Red to Survive is not going to help with the terror, it's an invulnerability effect. So let's evaluate the story. Terror phase, it's a draw. Combat phase, Lilith wins, so let's remove Degenerate Ghoul. And now we're going to play Dr. Maya Badri. When a character is destroyed, put her in there until the end of turn. So she comes in, and Arcane phase, nobody does anything. And then Investigation phase, due to Dr. Maya, we win, and we take the story and win the game. So here, we won 3 stories to nothing. Few reasons for that. One is that, most importantly, the deck I'm using was a Store Championship deck, and Lilith's just poking around with the core set. Reason for that is that I know the cards well, and it was easier to explain the video as we go. The second reason, which is related to the core set, is that Lilith got very bad draw, so the consistency of the deck is not great, with like 1 copy of everything, and she got flooded with high-cost characters. But nevertheless, I hope you can see that during the game, you understood Lilith's logic. It's not so hard to apply. Lilith's turns are pretty quick. It's pushing as we want all the analysis back to the player. So give her a try. What you'll find is you have a few games with certain decks, and you'll find decks where she works extremely well playing as and against, and decks that don't go so well, particular cards, and so on. So in the first instance, you can find a set of decks that really work well with her. Removing some cards that she might not make best advantage of, and putting in the ones that play to her strengths of how she applies the logic. And then as you develop practicing, you can kind of find certain scenarios where you might customize her rules. So, for example, in the deck that I'm using, if we feel that Witten Green is the most important character, we might say that Lilith will always try to destroy her, even if there's a character of higher cost in play. Things like that. So it's customizable. One size will never fit all. It's kind of starting point of a basis of logic. And the principle of Lilith is that we set out the logic beforehand. So during the game, we know exactly what she's doing. The reason for that is we want to feel like we're playing against Lilith. We're not playing as Lilith. So we don't want to be playing both sides. So what we're really doing is we're taking away all the decision making from the player, and the player is just applying an algorithm. And then it really improves the gameplay experience. You really feel more like you're playing against some unknown entity rather than you're just playing against yourself. So the worst that it comes down to is a bit of combat math, but I believe that this is precisely the combat math that anyway you would be doing on both sides of the table throughout the game. So it doesn't cost so much. And indeed, a lot of the refinements with Lilith V2.0 were to simplify the algorithms to avoid a kind of analysis paralysis or some type of exhaustion on the player's part. So, just in closing, although Lilith lost this game pretty readily, I can tell you that it's not normally the case. And she puts up a pretty good fight and sometimes can overwhelm the player. So, try her out. Let me know in the forum how it goes, what your feelings were on the rules, the amount of thought required, which decks worked out what way, and so on. So, look forward to hearing from you, and thank you for watching. Good luck.